The Golden Bull, Chapter 9. Jomar took the food and bowed his head in gratitude. Then he and Zephyr left the group. When they turned to wave farewell, they saw sheepskins already unrolled and spread out on the ground in preparation for their long-delayed rest. Jomar patted Zephyr on her back. Singing to that baby was a good way to get food. That isn't why I did it, Zephyr said, but I noticed they gave the food to you, not me. It's because I'm the oldest, Jomar said. Zephyr shook her head. Unfair. She slipped the reed basket off her back. They're sleeping. What about us? Mother thought we'd be in Ur by nightfall, so we have no blankets, Jomar said. I'm too tired to need bedding. Without another word, Zephyr shook out her loose braids, then stretched out on the ground by the side of the road. Jomar lay down beside her, cradling his head in his arms. He hummed Zephyr's lullaby and sank into an exhausted sleep like the baby on his mother's shoulder. When he awoke, the warmth of the new day covered him like a thin cotton blanket. He looked at Zephyr, still sleeping. The strain on her face had been smoothed away by rest. Wake up, Zephyr. The sun god begins his ride across the sky. Zephyr gave a small moan and sat up. She ran her hands through her hair and began braiding it. Father was right. Her long black hair no longer shone. He touched her shoulder gently. Your song helped me get to sleep. Zephyr smiled. It was almost the same lullaby I sang to my favorite pig after it was born. Instead of black-eyed baby boy, I used to sing pink-eyed pretty pig. He smiled back at her, then realized this was the first time on their journey that he had done so. They started out again, but now they were not alone on the rutted road. Where had these people been last night? Had they, too, slept by the side of the road or bedded down in empty fields? Most of the travelers going towards the city were raw-boned single men, carrying heavy burdens on their shoulders. Looking slightly more prosperous, a few men walked beside loaded wooden carts, pulled by small, straining donkeys. The families with dawdling young children traveled slowly. The people moving in the opposite direction looked defeated, their shoulders hunched and their eyes upon the road. Seeing the children reminded Jomar of his first trip to Ur. When he was a little boy, his father had taken him to the great temple to watch the ceremonies that greeted the new year. He remembered his father's comforting hand on his shoulder as they walked towards the city. Like the fragment of a long-ago dream, he recalled the splendor of the celebration, the sacrifice of a great bull with gold-tipped horns, and the throngs of joyous people. He looked around him. Now weary travelers on the road were seeking relief from their failing farms. Zephyr brought Jomar out of his reverie. What food did they give us last night? Jomar untied the food pouch, and they greedily ate the smelly goat cheese, briny olives, and 2 wrinkled plums. They cracked open the husks of pistachio nuts with their teeth and spit out the empty shells as they walked. The meal was meager. To distract himself from his persistent hunger, Jomar searched the land stretching far ahead. Zephyr, look, he said, coming to a halt. In the heat-hazed distance, the tan-colored earth rose up from the flat plain and took the shape of a mud-brick wall that wrapped itself around the city. This is the wall that guards the temple of the moon god and all the wealth of Ur. They started walking again, but the strained expression on Zephyr's thin face returned, and her feet dragged. Others on the dusty road began to pass them. Walk faster, Jomar told her impatiently. Everyone must speak to the gatekeeper to see if they can enter the city. We don't want to lose our place. As they neared the wall, Zephyr pointed to a group of tattered men, women, and children clustered close to it. They're not waiting in line. What are they doing there? Wait, I'll find out, Jomar said. Coming closer, he found crude shelters huddled against the wall that offered some protection from the blistering sun, but no privacy. Jomar spoke with a gaunt man with sad eyes, who told him they were offering themselves as slaves in return for food and a place to sleep. Jomar returned to Zephyr. They're hoping to be hired by those who live inside the city, he told her. Zephyr clutched his arm. Promise me you'll stay with me no matter what happens. Jomar peered at his sister's frightened face. I promise. Aware of the other travelers trying to pass them, Jomar steered Zephyr towards a small kiosk that bulged out from the wall. Inside was the man who determined the fate of all who would enter the city. The sun bore down as they stood in the long, snaking line of people. Children grew quarrelsome with waiting. The odor of anxious, exhausted travelers merged with the sweat of burdened donkeys. From the front of the slowly moving line,